6 months passed quickly. The world had changed in ways no one could have imagined before the Horizon's fateful mission. Old enemies now worked side by side. The global economy had shifted to war production. Children studied alien language in schools. Everyone had a job to do. Captain Greg Russell stood in the massive hangar of the New Mexico Space Command, staring up at his new ship. The USS Defiant was Earth's first true warship, built with a mix of human ingenuity and alien technology. 3 times the size of the Horizon, its sleek hull gleamed under the bright lights. "She's ready, Captain," said Chief Engineer Sam Harris, walking up beside him. Sam wiped grease from his hands with an old rag. At 35, he was the best engineer in the fleet, with an uncanny ability to understand the alien tech. "Is she going to fly, Chief?" Greg asked. Sam grinned. "Fly? She'll dance, Captain. Those Harbinger ships won't know what hit them." Greg wasn't so sure. He had studied the combat data from the Fallen Alliance. The Harbingers had overwhelming numbers and had been fighting for decades. Humanity had 6 hastily built warships and crews with no combat experience in space. Colonel Frank Peterson approached them, now wearing the uniform of the Unified Earth Defense Force. "Walk with me, Captain," he said. As they moved through the busy hangar, Frank spoke quietly. "We just got new intel. Harbinger scouts have been spotted near Pluto. They're coming sooner than we thought." Greg felt his stomach tighten. "How long?" 2 weeks, maybe less. The fleet launches tomorrow." Frank stopped and looked Greg in the eye. "I know your record, Russell. I know about the incident in the Gulf. That's why I wanted you." Greg's jaw tightened. 3 years ago, he had disobeyed direct orders during a naval exercise, using tactics that his superiors called reckless. He had been right, but it had cost him a promotion. "With respect, sir, that was different." "No, it wasn't," Frank said firmly. "You think differently. You don't follow the book when the book is wrong. The Harbingers have fought the same enemy for centuries. They know how the Alliance thinks. But they've never fought humans." Greg understood then why he had been chosen. "You want me to surprise them?" Frank nodded. "Exactly. The Defiant is our flagship. Your orders are simple. Keep Earth safe, whatever it takes." The next day, the Earth fleet prepared to launch. Greg met his senior officers on the bridge of the Defiant. Lieutenant Eric Ramirez, navigation officer, was only 26 but had a natural talent for space travel. Dr. Linda Powell, the xenobiologist, was there to study the enemy's biology. And Sam Harris had brought his entire engineering team. "Status report," Greg ordered as he took his captain's chair. "All systems online," Sam reported from engineering. "Course plotted to Pluto intercept," added Eric. Greg took a deep breath. "Comms, patch me through to all ships." When the channel opened, he spoke clearly. "This is Captain Russell. Today we take the fight to the enemy. The Harbingers think they've found another easy target. They're wrong. They're facing humanity now, and we will not go quietly. Russell out." The fleet launched into space, 6 ships against an unknown number of enemies. For 9 days they traveled, running battle drills and preparing weapons. On the 10th day they reached Pluto's orbit. "Contact," shouted the sensor officer. 5 Harbinger scout ships approaching from the outer system. Greg studied the tactical display. The alien ships were smaller than he expected, probably an advance force. "They haven't detected us yet," said Eric. "Their sensors aren't scanning this sector." Greg smiled. This was their chance for a first strike. "Battle stations. Weapons hot. Lieutenant Ramirez, plot an intercept course that keeps Pluto between us and them. We'll use the moon's gravity well to slingshot around and hit them from behind." The crew moved with practiced efficiency. The fleet split into 2 groups just as they had trained. The Defiant led 3 ships around Pluto while 2 others moved to flank position. "They've spotted us," reported the sensor officer. "They're changing course. Hold steady," Greg ordered. "Wait for my mark." The Harbinger ships moved with strange, fluid motions unlike any human vessel. They seemed to flow rather than fly, their crystal structures catching the distant sunlight. "Now," Greg shouted when they reached the perfect position. "All ships, fire." Earth's weapons flashed across space. The first Harbinger ship shattered under the barrage, its crystal structure breaking apart. The others responded quickly, sending pulses of energy toward the human fleet. Evasive maneuvers, Greg ordered as the bridge shook from a near miss. Sam, how are the shields holding? 70%, Captain. Their weapons are stronger than we expected. Greg watched as one of Earth's ships, the Madrid, took a direct hit. Its engines failed and it began to drift. Get a rescue team to the Madrid, he ordered. The rest of us will keep the Harbingers busy. The battle raged for hours. Another Earth ship was badly damaged, but they managed to destroy 4 of the 5 Harbinger vessels. The last one was attempting to escape. Don't let it get away, Greg shouted. If it reports back to their fleet, we lose our advantage. The Defiant pursued the enemy ship beyond Pluto's orbit. With a final burst from their main weapons, they destroyed it. Silence fell over the bridge. They had won their first battle against the Harbingers, but at a cost. 17 crew members dead, 2 ships damaged. Send a message to Earth, Greg said quietly. Tell them we made first contact with the enemy. The Harbingers are real and they're as dangerous as we feared, but we can fight them. We can win. As the message was sent, a strange alien ship appeared on their sensors. It wasn't a Harbinger vessel. It had the markings of the Alliance. They're hailing us, Captain, said Wendy Park from communications. On screen, Greg ordered. The alien that appeared had green scales and large black eyes. I am General Krelvox of the Rigelian Defense Force, it said in accented English. We detected your battle. We did not expect to find another species fighting the Harbingers, especially not one as young as yours. Greg stood tall. We're full of surprises. Krelvox studied him. Indeed, perhaps more than the Harbingers are prepared for. My ship is one of the last Alliance vessels in this sector. I bring warning. What you faced today was nothing. The main Harbinger fleet approaches, 10,000 ships strong. Greg felt the weight of those words but kept his face neutral. Then we better get ready. Would you care to join us, General? We could use your experience. The alien was silent for a moment. You face impossible odds, yet you show no fear. Fear doesn't help win battles, Greg replied. Strategy does. And humans have been studying war for our entire history. Krelvox made a sound that might have been a laugh. Your species adapts to war with disturbing efficiency. Very well, Captain. Russell, the Alliance has fallen, but I will join your fight. Perhaps humanity will succeed where we failed. As the Rigelian ship joined formation with the Earth fleet, Greg looked out at the stars. The real war was just beginning, but humanity had drawn first blood. They had proven they could fight, and sometimes that was enough to change the course of a war. Set course for Earth, he ordered. We need to prepare for the main fleet. As the ships turned homeward, Greg knew that everything had changed. Humanity wasn't just fighting for survival now. They were fighting to prove they belonged among the stars, and he intended to make sure they did. The stars looked different from this far out. Commander Susan Miller stood on the bridge of the USS Horizon and gazed at the view screen. After 3 weeks of faster-than-light travel, Earth was just a memory. This was humanity's first journey beyond the solar system, and Susan felt the weight of that responsibility. All systems normal, Commander, said Lieutenant Ryan Cole from his station. We're approaching the coordinates now. Susan nodded. Slow to half speed. Let's be careful. The mission was simple. Test the new FTL drive, collect data from this unexplored region, and return home. Susan expected to find empty space, maybe an interesting asteroid. What she didn't expect was the broken ship that suddenly appeared on their sensors. Unknown vessel detected, announced Communications Officer Wendy Park. It's huge, Commander. At least 3 times our size. Susan felt her heart race. First contact. This was what humans had dreamed about for centuries. Any response? To our signals? She asked. None, Commander, but I'm picking up life signs. They're weak. Susan made her decision quickly. Prepare a rescue team. I'll lead it myself. The alien ship was dying. as Susan and her team moved through its dark hallways. In their spacesuits, they saw signs of a fierce battle. Walls were torn open. Strange burn marks covered the floors. The air was thin but breathable according to their instruments. "What happened here?" whispered Medical Officer Gary Hart as he examined a strange substance on the wall. They found the survivor in what seemed to be the command center. The alien was tall and thin with blue skin that seemed to shimmer under their lights. It was badly hurt, blue blood pooling beneath it. Susan removed her helmet after checking her air readings. "We're here to help," she said, though she knew the alien couldn't understand. To her surprise, the alien spoke. "You human?" Its voice was raspy, but the words were clear English. Susan couldn't hide her shock. "Yes. How do you know our language?" "We have studied your world from afar." The alien coughed. "I am Ambassador Zeth Loren of the Centauri, member of the Galactic Alliance." Gary moved forward with his medical kit, but the alien waved him away. "Too late for me. Listen carefully. The Alliance is falling. The Void Harbingers have broken our lines." Susan kneeled beside the dying alien. "Void Harbingers? Who are they?" "The enemy of all life. They consume. They convert. For centuries we kept them back. Now we fail." Zeth Loren's breathing became more difficult. "Your species is young, but you might have a chance. Where others see only war, you might see new ways." The alien reached out with a six-fingered hand. From it extended a small metal probe that touched Susan's temple. Pain shot through her head as images and information flooded her mind. She saw massive fleets of crystal-like ships. She saw beautiful worlds burning. She saw strange silicon creatures spreading across planets like a disease. When it ended, Susan gasped and fell back. The alien's hand dropped. "Warn Earth," Zeth Loren whispered. "The Harbingers will come, they always come." Then the light faded from the alien's large eyes. The return journey was tense. Susan spent hours reviewing the information now stored in her mind. Star maps, weapon designs, history of a war that had raged across the galaxy for decades, and the terrifying truth. Earth was now on the path of the Void Harbingers. When they reached Earth, the news of first contact spread quickly. Susan was called to address the United Nations Security Council. "The Alliance has fought the Harbingers for over 50 years, she explained to the room full of world leaders. "They've lost more than 30 major worlds. Their fleets are destroyed. Their people are scattered. And now the Harbingers have detected our FTL signature. They know where we are." "How much time do we have?" asked the Secretary General. "A year, maybe 2. Susan displayed images from Zeth Loren's memories on the big screen. The Harbingers are silicon-based life forms with a shared mind. They believe organic life is inefficient and must be converted or destroyed. Panic filled the room. Some leaders called for massive space defenses. Others suggested evacuation ships. A few even proposed surrender. Then Colonel Frank Peterson stood up. The retired Marine had been quietly listening from the back of the room. "I speak?" he asked. The room fell silent as he walked to the front. At 62, Frank was still fit and commanded respect. "For all our history, we've fought each other over land, resources, and ideas," he said. "We've gotten very good at war. Too good, some would say." He paused and looked around the room. "But what if that's been preparing us for something bigger? These Alliance folks have all this advanced technology, but they still lost. Maybe they lacked something we have in abundance." "And what's that?" someone asked. Frank smiled. "Stubbornness, creativity when our backs are against the wall. The human spirit doesn't give up even when the odds are impossible." He turned to Susan. "Commander, did the alien data include their weapons technology?" Susan nodded. "Yes, and their ship designs. We could build them, but it would take years to match their fleet size." "We don't need to match them," Frank said. "We need to outthink them. Throughout history, smaller forces have defeated larger ones through better strategy and unconventional tactics." The Chinese representative spoke up. "Colonel Peterson is right. Sun Tzu taught that superior numbers do not guarantee victory. Strategy does. For the first time since returning to Earth, Susan felt a spark of hope. The Alliance fought defensively, protecting their worlds. Maybe we need a different approach, Frank nodded. Exactly. We hit them where they don't expect it. We use what they think are our weaknesses as strengths. The room was changing. Fear was turning into determination. The American president stood. I propose we create a unified Earth Defense Force. She said, no more separate armies or navies. One force, one purpose, survival. One by one, other leaders stood in agreement. As the meeting ended, Frank approached Susan. I've been asked to head up the military response, he said. I want you as my second in command. You have the alien knowledge we need. Susan looked at the old soldier. Do you really think we have a chance, Colonel? Frank's eyes were hard, but not without hope. The galaxy is about to learn something important, Commander. You don't corner humans, we don't know how to quit. He offered his hand. Are you in? Susan took his hand. Yes, sir. Let's show these harbingers what humanity can do. Outside the UN building, reporters swarmed them. Commander Miller, Colonel Peterson, what's the plan to face this alien threat? One shouted. Frank looked at the cameras. His voice was steady and sure. The plan is simple. We fight. We win. And then we rebuild the stars better than they were before. As they walked through the crowd, Susan realized humanity had just changed. Forever. The stars were no longer just lights in the sky, they were battlefields. And humanity was going to war. The war had been raging for 4 months. Humanity had proven itself surprisingly effective against the harbingers. Not enough to win, but enough to survive. Earth's fleet had grown to 30 ships, using salvaged Alliance technology and human innovation. They fought using hit-and-run tactics, striking harbinger supply lines and then disappearing before the main fleet could respond. Commander Julie Martinez guided her small scout ship through the asteroid field. The Pathfinder was built for speed and stealth, not combat. Her mission was simple. Gather intelligence on harbinger movements in this sector. Any signals, Sergeant? She asked her communications officer, Bill Nelson. Nothing yet, Commander, Bill replied, adjusting his headset. This area is supposed to be a major harbinger transport route, but I'm not picking up any traffic. Julie frowned. Intelligence from their Rigelian allies indicated the harbingers use this sector regularly. Keep scanning. Something's not right. Suddenly, the ship shuddered violently. We're hit, shouted the pilot, Laura Green. Unknown weapon. Signature. Evasive action, Julie ordered. Get us out of here. Laura fought with the controls as more energy blasts rocked the ship. Engines at 40%, we're losing altitude. Julie saw a small planetoid nearby. Head for that moon. We can try to lose them in the atmosphere. The Pathfinder dived toward the rocky surface, trailing smoke. 3 crystal ships, definitely harbingers, pursued them. Laura managed to weave through a mountain range, temporarily losing their pursuers, but the damage was done. The ship crashed hard on a plateau. Everyone okay? Julie asked, unbuckling from her seat. The bridge was dark, emergency lights casting red shadows. Alive, groaned Bill. But the comms are fried. Laura checked her console. Engines are dead, life support running on backup power. We have maybe 3 days. Julie moved to the observation window. The planetoid had a thin atmosphere, breathable according to their sensors, but barely. The landscape was barren except for strange crystal formations that reflected the light of a distant sun. We need to send a distress signal, she said. Bill, see if you can repair the comm system. Laura, check our supplies. I'll scout outside. Wearing her environmental suit as a precaution, Julie stepped onto the alien surface. The gravity was lighter than Earth's, making her movements feel bouncy. She climbed a small ridge to get a better view of their surroundings. What she saw made her freeze. In the valley below stood a massive crystal city, its towers reaching skyward like frozen flames. It was beautiful, alien, and definitely not harbinger construction. This planet was inhabited. Commander. Laura's voice came through her helmet, calm. Sensors are picking up movement, heading your way fast. Julie turned to see several figures approaching. They moved with liquid grace, their bodies seeming to flow rather than walk. They were humanoid but made entirely of living crystal that shifted colors as they moved. She reached for her weapon but stopped herself. If they wanted her dead, they could have shot her already. This might be their only chance for survival. The lead figure stopped a few meters away. It was taller than a human, with a crystalline body that sparkled with internal light. Where a face should be, there was a smooth surface that suddenly rippled and formed what looked like eyes and a mouth. "You are not Harbinger," it said, the voice sounding like chimes in the wind. "But you are not Alliance either." Julie was stunned. "You speak English?" "I speak all languages I encounter. I am Siran of the Vorathi." The crystal being gestured toward the crashed ship. "Your vessel is damaged. The Harbingers will return to finish their hunt." "We mean no harm," Julie said quickly. "We're humans from Earth. We're at war with the Harbingers." Siran's body changed color, shifting from blue to a curious purple. "Another species fighting the endless war. Interesting. Follow me if you wish to live. Bring your companions." Julie had little choice. She called Bill and Laura, and they gathered what supplies they could carry. The Vorathi led them through hidden paths to the Crystal City. Inside, they discovered a civilization unlike anything they had imagined. The entire city was alive, buildings growing and shifting as needed. The Vorathi themselves were a collective mind, each individual connected to the others through what they called the resonance. In a large chamber at the center of the city, Siran introduced them to the Vorathi Council, 7 beings who pulsed with brighter light than the others. "These humans fight the Harbingers," Siran explained. "Yet they are not Alliance. They claim to be from a world called Earth." One council member, glowing red, moved forward. "Why would such a young species enter this ancient conflict? The Alliance has fought for centuries with vastly superior technology and still failed." Julie stood tall. "We didn't choose this war. But we won't run from it either. The Harbingers threatened our world." "Many worlds have been threatened," said another council member. "Many have fallen. The Alliance sought our help as well," added a third. "We refused. Their vision of the galaxy left no room for our independence. They wished to control through diplomacy what the Harbingers control through force." Julie was surprised. "You've stayed neutral in this war?" "We have protected ourselves," Siran corrected. "The Vorathi cannot be easily detected by either Alliance or Harbinger sensors. We have remained hidden, watching the war unfold." The Red Council member approached Julie. "We would know more of your kind. Our way is to understand through connection." Before Julie could ask what that meant, the being extended a crystal tendril that touched her forehead. She gasped as images flooded between them. The Vorathi was in her mind, seeing Earth's history, humanity's struggles, their art, music, wars, and dreams. At the same time, Julie glimpsed the Vorathi history, a species that evolved from the living crystal of their world, developing consciousness and then a collective mind that still valued individual thought. When the connection broke, Julie staggered back, caught by Bill. The red Vorathi's color had changed to a deep blue. "Fascinating," it said. "Your kind has such capacity for both destruction and creation. You war against yourselves, yet unite against common threats. You are divided, yet whole." Siran turned to the council. "These humans do not seek to control us. They fight only for survival, theirs and others." The council conferred in silent communion, colors shifting rapidly between them. Finally, Siran turned back to Julie. "The Vorathi have decided, we will aid you against the Harbingers." Julie could hardly believe it. "Thank you, but why now? Why help us when you refused the Alliance?" "The Alliance sought to preserve their order. You seek to preserve life itself." Siran's form rippled. "And there is something more. Something we sensed in your mind." "What's that?" Julie asked. Hope, Cyran replied simply. Despite knowing the odds, despite seeing worlds fall, you believe you can win. Such belief is uncommon in this galaxy. We wish to see if it is justified. Meanwhile, aboard the Defiant, Captain Russell was analyzing data from recent battles when his science officer made a discovery. Captain, Dr. Linda Powell said excitedly, I've found something in the Harbinger communication patterns. Each time we destroy one of their ships, there's a momentary disruption in their entire fleet's coordination. Greg leaned forward. What kind of disruption? Their hive mind uses quantum entanglement to share information instantly across vast distances, Linda explained. But when a node is violently destroyed, it creates feedback in the system. If we could amplify that feedback somehow, we could disrupt their entire network, Greg finished. How would we do that? Before Linda could answer, the communications officer interrupted. Captain, we're receiving a transmission from the Pathfinder. Commander Martinez is alive, and she's made contact with a new alien species called the Vorathi. Greg felt a spark of hope. Put her through. Julie's face appeared on screen. Beside her stood a crystalline being that shifted colors as it moved. Captain Russell, Julie said, smiling. Meet Cyran of the Vorathi. They have abilities that might just turn this war around. Cyran spoke, its voice melodic. We have observed your battles, Captain. Your tactics are unorthodox. The Harbingers do not know how to counter them. Greg nodded. We're learning as we go. But we've just discovered a potential weakness in their network. The quantum feedback, Cyran said, surprising them. Yes, we have known of this, but alone, neither your weapons nor our abilities could exploit it fully. Julie's eyes widened with understanding. But together, Cyran agreed. We might create what your scientist is already thinking, a cascading failure in the Harbinger network. For the first time since the war began, Greg felt they had a real chance. Humanity's unexpected tactics combined with the Vorathi's unique abilities might accomplish what the Alliance never could. Commander Martinez, he said, bring our new allies to Earth. We have planning to do. As the transmission ended, Greg looked at his crew. It seems the galaxy has more surprises in store for the Harbingers. Let's make sure they're unpleasant ones. The research facility under the Rocky Mountains buzzed with activity. In the central lab, Dr. Alice Johnson worked alongside Vorathi scientists, their crystalline bodies glowing softly in the artificial light. Together, they were creating something that might change the course of the war. The calibration is still off, Alice said, adjusting controls on the device they called the Prometheus. It was roughly the size of a microwave oven, with both human and Vorathi technology merged together. The psionic wave needs to match the quantum frequency exactly, or it won't cascade through their network. Cyran, who had become the main liaison between humans and Vorathi, placed a crystalline hand over the device. The interior of the alien's body pulsed with light as it connected directly to the machine. The resonance is improved, Cyran said after a moment. But you are correct. It requires further refinement. Chief Engineer Sam Harris entered the lab, carrying new components. I think I've solved the power problem, he said. These modified cells should give us the burst we need without burning out. Alice smiled tiredly. She hadn't slept properly in days. None of them had. The latest reports from the front lines were grim. The Harbinger main fleet had arrived in the solar system. Earth's ships were fighting bravely, but they were outnumbered 50-1. They had perhaps 3 days before Earth's defenses would be overwhelmed. Will it be ready in time? She asked Sam quietly. He looked at the device, then at the Vorathi scientists. It has to be. On the Defiant, Captain Greg Russell studied the tactical display with Colonel Frank Peterson. Earth appeared as a blue sphere on the screen, surrounded by red dots representing Harbinger ships. Their own forces were shown in green, far too few against the massive enemy fleet. We can't hold them much longer, Greg said. Our hit and run tactics work against small groups, but they've adapted. They're pressing the attack on all fronts now. Frank nodded grimly. They know about the Prometheus project. They're trying to finish us before we can deploy it. A communication alert sounded. Captain, said the comm officer. It's Dr. Johnson. She says the device is ready for testing. Hope sparked in both men's eyes. Greg opened the channel. Doctor, please tell me you have good news. Alice's tired face appeared on screen. We think it works, Captain. Small-scale tests show the psionic disruption can be amplified through the quantum network. In theory, it should create a cascade effect through all connected Harbinger units. In theory? Frank asked. We can't test it at full scale without deploying it, Alice explained. And there's one major problem. It needs to be activated at the heart of the Harbinger fleet, as close as possible to their command structure. The effect will be strongest at the source and diminish with distance. Greg and Frank exchanged looks. This meant a suicide mission. I'll take it, Frank said firmly. Colonel, Greg began to protest. This isn't up for debate, Captain. Frank cut him off. I've led men into battle for 40 years. This is no different. Greg knew better than to argue. How soon can you deploy? The device will be ready for transport in 6 hours, Alice said. We're making final adjustments now. Then we need a plan to get the Colonel to the Harbinger command ship, Greg said. The strategy they developed was desperate but clever. Using intelligence from both Alliance survivors and Vorathi observations, they identified the likely command vessel in the Harbinger fleet, a massive ship twice the size of the others, always positioned at the center of their formation. A small, fast transport ship would carry Frank and a squad of Marines. The Defiant and the remaining Earth fleet would create a diversion, drawing away as many enemy ships as possible. Meanwhile, 3 Vorathi vessels would escort the transport, using their natural abilities to mask it from Harbinger sensors. 6 hours later, Frank stood in the hangar bay of the Defiant, looking at the small transport ship that would carry him to his final mission. The Prometheus device had been secured in the cargo hold. A team of 12 Marines, all volunteers, waited by the ship. Greg approached, extending his hand. It's been an honor, Colonel. Frank shook it firmly. The honor's mine, Captain. Just make sure this sacrifice means something. When the Harbingers are disabled, finish them off. We will, Greg promised. Earth won't forget what you're doing today. Frank smiled slightly. I'm not doing this just for Earth. I'm doing it for all the worlds that couldn't defend themselves, for all the species the Harbingers have destroyed. He looked around at the busy hangar, humans working alongside Vorathi and the few Alliance survivors. We've proved something important here. Different species, different biologies, different ways of thinking. But we can still stand together. Greg nodded. Safe journey, Colonel. Frank turned and boarded the transport without looking. Back, the battle began an hour later. Earth's fleet launched a full-scale attack on the Harbinger forces surrounding Mars. The sudden aggression caught the enemy by surprise, creating the diversion they needed. On the bridge of the Defiant, Greg watched the tactical display as Frank's transport slipped past the main battle lines, escorted by 3 Vorathi ships that bent light around them, creating a sensor blind spot. They're through the first line, reported Lieutenant Eric Ramirez from Tactical. 20 minutes to target. The battle intensified. The Harbingers recovered from their initial surprise and began coordinating their attacks with mechanical precision. 3 Earth ships were destroyed in quick succession. Harbingers are sending reinforcements to protect their command ship, Eric called out. They may have detected the transport. Greg gripped the arms of his chair. All ships, focus fire on Sector 7. Draw their attention away from the command vessel. The Earth fleet responded immediately, concentrating their attack on the designated sector. The strategy worked, momentarily. Several Harbinger ships moved to counter the threat. Transport is 15 minutes from target, Eric updated. Suddenly, the tactical display showed 5 Harbinger ships breaking off from the main battle. They were heading directly toward the transport's position. They've spotted them, Greg said grimly. Warn the Colonel. On the transport, Frank received the warning with calm resolve. Understood, Defiant. We'll adjust course. Peterson out. He turned to his pilot. Take us in hot. Maximum speed. The pilot nodded. Yes, sir. The Vorathi escorts are engaging the pursuers. Through the viewport, Frank could see the three Varathi ships turning to face the approaching harbingers. Their crystalline hulls pulsed with energy as they fired weapons unlike anything humans had built, beams of pure psionic force that cut through the silicon structure of the enemy vessels. Two harbinger ships shattered under the assault, but the other three pressed forward. One of the Varathi ships exploded in a shower of crystal fragments. 10 minutes to target, the pilot reported. We're taking fire. The transport shuddered as energy blasts struck its shields. Frank moved to the cargo hold where his Marines were checking their weapons. Looks like we'll have to fight our way in, he told them. Remember the plan. Get me and this device to their central processor. Nothing else matters. The transport took more hits. Alarms blared as systems failed. Shields at 20%, shouted the pilot. 5 minutes to target. Another violent impact rocked the ship. We're hit. Engines failing. Frank grabbed the comm. Can we still reach the target? We have enough momentum, the pilot answered. But it won't be pretty. Brace for impact. The transport crashed into the massive Harbinger command ship, tearing through the outer hull. Metal and crystal screeched as the human. 1 year after the defeat of the Harbingers, the galaxy was changing. Where once the Galactic Alliance had ruled through complicated politics and ancient traditions, a new organization was forming. They called it the Galactic Confederation, AI, union of species working together but respecting each other's independence. Admiral Susan Miller stood by the large window in the new space station orbiting Earth. Named Unity, the station served as the headquarters for the Confederation. From here she could see Earth below, beautiful and blue, and the ships coming and going from all over the galaxy. The Rigelian delegation has arrived, Admiral, said her aide, Lieutenant Kyle Turner. Susan nodded. Show them to the council chamber. I'll be there shortly. As the aide left, Susan took a moment to reflect on how much had changed. Just over a year ago, humanity had never met an alien species. Now, Earth was becoming a center for galactic diplomacy, not because humans had the most advanced technology, they didn't, but because they had proven themselves as warriors, innovators, and, surprisingly to many alien species, fair mediators. The council chamber was already filling with representatives when Susan arrived. Admiral Greg Russell, now in charge of the Joint Defense Fleet, stood talking with Siren, whose crystalline body shifted with blue and green colors, a sign of pleasure among the Varathi. Admiral Miller, Siren greeted her. We were just discussing the new defense outpost near Saturn. Construction is ahead of schedule, Greg added. The Varathi crystal tech makes our old building methods look primitive. Susan smiled. The partnership between humans and Varathi had grown stronger after the war. The crystalline beings found humans fascinating, so emotional and individualistic, yet capable of working together when needed. Humans, in turn, were amazed by Varathi, society, which functioned as both a collective and a group of individuals. Shall we begin? Susan asked, gesturing to the large round table. Representatives from 12 species took their seats. Some, like the Rigelians and Centauri, had been part of the old alliance. Others, like the Varathi, were new to galactic politics. Earth held a council seat despite being technologically behind many member species. This meeting of the Confederation, Council is now in session, Susan announced. Our first order of business is the Harbinger Containment Project. Dr. Alice Johnson, now leading the scientific initiative studying Harbinger technology, stood up. She had spent months examining the dormant Harbinger ships and the few surviving drones. The neural network has been completely shut down, she reported. The Prometheus device worked better than we anticipated. But we've discovered something interesting. The Harbingers weren't evil in the human sense. They were simply following their evolutionary imperative. They destroyed countless worlds, objected the Rigelian representative. Billions of lives were lost. Alice nodded. Yes, but not out of malice or hatred. They saw organic life as inefficient. They believed they were improving the galaxy by converting it to their form. Understanding them is the first step to ensuring nothing like them threatens sentient life again. What do you propose? Asked the Centauri representative. A contained research facility in the outer system, Alice replied. We can learn from their technology without risking reactivation of the hive mind. The council debated the proposal, eventually approving it with strict safety measures. Susan watched with pride. This was how the Confederation worked. Open discussion, respect for different viewpoints, and practical solutions. The meeting continued with updates on reconstruction efforts. Over 30 worlds had been damaged or abandoned during the Harbinger War. Now, joint teams were helping survivors rebuild or relocate. After the formal council session, Susan joined Greg and several other humans in a smaller room. Here, away from the alien representatives, they could speak more freely. The Varathi engineers think we can have a new FTL drive ready within 6 months, said Sam Harris, who had been promoted to Director of Joint Technology Development. Twice, as fast as our current ships and using half the energy. Good, Susan said. We'll need it. There's a lot of galaxy to explore, and we're still playing catch-up with most species. Speaking of which, Greg added, the scout ships found something interesting near the edge of the Confederation's known space. Signals from the Andromeda Galaxy. The room fell silent. The Andromeda Galaxy, the nearest major galaxy to the Milky Way, over 2 million light-years away. The old Alliance had detected similar signals decades ago but had never investigated, too focused on their internal politics, and then the Harbinger War. What kind of signals? Asked Eric Ramirez, now a captain with his own ship. Artificial, Greg replied. Definitely from an intelligent species with technology at least as advanced as the old Alliance. Maybe more advanced. What would the old Alliance have done? Asked Linda Powell, who had continued her work in xenobiology. Sent warships, probably, Susan answered. They operated on caution first, diplomacy second. But that's not our way. She looked around at her fellow humans, all of whom had fought in the war. They had seen enough death and destruction. We'll send scientists first, then diplomats, Susan decided. Warships only if necessary. Humanity didn't come to the stars to conquer them, but to ensure all species have the right to exist under them. The others nodded in agreement. This approach, hopeful but prepared, had become humanity's trademark in galactic affairs. 3 months later, a joint expedition prepared to depart for the edge of the Milky Way. The ship, named Horizon 2, in honor of the vessel that made first contact, carried scientists and diplomats from 5 species, including humans. Captain Eric Ramirez stood on the bridge looking at his diverse crew. His first officer was Varathi, the chief engineer was Rigelian, and the science team included experts from across the Confederation. All systems ready, Captain, reported the Rigelian engineer. The new drive is operating at optimal efficiency. Eric nodded. Then let's make history. Again. Set course for the Andromeda signals. As the ship prepared to jump to FTL, Eric thought about everything that had led to this moment. The desperate battle against the Harbingers, the sacrifice of Colonel Peterson, the alliance with the Varathi. All had changed the course of galactic history. Back on Earth, the memorial to those who had fallen in the war was finally complete. A simple stone monument in a quiet garden outside the New Earth Space Command headquarters. Susan Miller stood before it, reading the names engraved there. So many brave souls. So many who had given everything so that others might live. Frank Peterson's name was at the top, the man whose final act had saved not just Earth, but countless other worlds as well. We did it, Frank, she whispered. We proved humanity belongs among the stars. A gentle breeze moved through the garden as Susan placed a small stone on top of the monument. An old military tradition to show a fallen comrade had been visited and remembered. In orbit above Earth, construction continued on, larger stations and shipyards. The lessons learned from Alliance and Harbinger technology were being put to good use. Earth ships were still not the most advanced in the galaxy, but they were catching up quickly. More importantly, humanity had brought something unique to the galactic community, not just their determination or fighting spirit, but their ability to see a different way forward. Where the old Alliance saw threats, humans saw potential allies. Where others saw only competition, humans sought cooperation. On the observation deck of Unity Station, Cyran stood with a group of newly arrived Vorathi younglings, crystal beings only decades old, still learning about the galaxy. "The humans are so fragile," observed one youngling. "Their bodies break easily. They live such short lives. How did they defeat the Harbingers when the Alliance could not?" Cyran's body shifted to a teaching color, a deep purple that signaled wisdom being shared. "They succeeded because of those very limitations you mention. Because they are fragile, they learn to be careful. Because their lives are short, they make each moment matter. Because they are individuals, they think in ways the hive mind Harbingers could not predict." The youngling considered this. "What will happen when the Andromedan signals are investigated? Will there be another war?" "Perhaps," Cyran admitted. "But I believe the humans will try to make friends first. That is their way. They fight fiercely when needed, but they prefer to build rather than destroy." In deep space, the Horizon 2 accelerated to FTL speed, carrying its diverse crew toward a new frontier. Unknown challenges lay ahead, but also new discoveries, new species, perhaps new friends. Captain Ramirez recorded a message in his log. "We're on our way to meet our galactic neighbors. The universe tested us, and we answered, not just with strength, but with something many alien species find even more remarkable: hope. Whatever we find in Andromeda, we carry with us the lessons of the Harbinger War. We are stronger together than apart. Differences can be strengths. And even the most advanced enemy can be defeated when diverse minds unite toward a common goal." As the ship disappeared into the depths of space, the stars seemed to shine a little brighter. The galaxy had changed forever. The old order had fallen, crushed by the Harbingers. But then humanity had arrived to finish the job, not of destruction, but of building something new and better from the ruins. And in that new galaxy, all species would have a voice. All would have a place. All would have hope.